Sorry, yes. It's my first day. Does that work now? So, ironically, I've got the closed captions working, but in doing so, I managed to turn off the sound. So, I mean, what's one step forward and two steps back, isn't it? Anyway, the good news is you can now hear me, and we have the closed captions working. So, if anybody has trouble understanding me or hearing issues or anything like that, you can now get a text version. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but in fact, if you could feed back to me how accurate that is, I would be very interested to know. But we'll see. Yeah, text version. Yeah. It's all bells and whistles here. It's all bells and whistles. So firstly, thank you to Foxy. Foxy was playing this great little horror game. She's a variety streamer. She also does paranormal material and singing. And she came in with a great raid. I'm trying to get her to get a death counter on her stream, because I think that's funny, but she might not. Thank you for the gift, Subditch. No, it's not. It's not a text-to-speech system. It's people who can actually. It's subtitling what I'm saying. You could turn on basically subtitles to what I'm saying. I can see it, so I don't know if anybody else can. I don't think they make a counter that goes that high, says Foxy. Well, you know. Ditch, you were hoping I might read it out. Yeah, well, I mean, given the material we've got later tonight, I don't think there's anything to lose. So thank you for gifting a sub to Cock Juggling Thunder. That's as much as you're getting. Tonight, the plan is to do 2 stories. The first of which is what was for a long time one of the classic unsolved crime stories of recent years, but then it was solved. And the way it was solved is absolutely pushing forward what DNA can do, but also opens up a massive moral quandary. And if there's one thing I like, it's getting chat to talk about a massive moral quandary. Sadly, Ditch, there is no cat DNA involved in this. Obviously, cat DNA is not a moral quandary because cats are awesome. No, not dog DNA. I will get a dog DNA story, Ditch, don't worry. The next story is a much shorter one, but it is. So what I want to do here, I don't just want to be doing stuff that everyone's done over and over again, and I try and add value to that. And I want to be doing, new material. And a court case finished in Britain last week. So basically, we're covering this. I don't know, 5 days after the prison sentences were given out. So I feel that's quite new. It is a. I'm not going to make any bones about this. It is an extraordinary and disturbingly horrific case. However, unlike most true crime, it's the guys who are going to be disturbed by it. So cross your legs and strap in. Have we got a breaking news for you later? Also, I apologise in advance. I feel we've got to do it because it's random and new. Do you mean to still have our intro music playing? Yes, this is background music, Ditch. This is meant to be background music to the stream. It's on every scene. It is the soundtrack. Thanks to Steve for sorting me out with a brilliant bit of music. Sounds like Slenderman is approaching. Exactly. It's vibes. You want the. I mean, maybe if I'm talking about a true crime story, is it spooky enough? Is it weird enough? Well, it is now with the music. Where's Polly? Polly's not in tonight. The door's been open for quite a lot. Now, the reason Polly's not in tonight, Ditch, is because Polycam, one of the cables failed. I attempted to order a replacement cable, and possibly ordered the wrong cable. So Polycam hopefully will be operational on Thursday, and then we just have to hope Polly wants to come in. But we are at the whims of Polly on that one. I don't pick it. I'm not one of these people that waves the cat in front of the camera. If the cat wants to come in, oh boy, the cat will come in. But if the cat doesn't want to come in, the cat really doesn't want to come in. So the door is shut and the window is open, which means I won't boil to death while doing this. But yeah, Polly hopefully will. I mean, what do we do for the affiliate party? It was like 2.5 hours. She didn't come in once. Cat say. But she came in 6 minutes after the stream ended, and then sat on the keyboard. So yeah, we really need to speak about entertainment. We need to prep her. Of course, Polly can be here anytime any subscribers want to, because there is a Polly emote. And if Television needs to earn a keep, yeah, I mean, you know, somebody's got. Yes, Ditchboy, thanks for gifting Leslie a sub. Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to keep supplying Dreamies to Polly, and at the moment it's all me, you know. I mean, she doesn't do any chores either. She just sort of wanders around. Making me spend money. But isn't that the beauty of cats? I'm going to give a really niche sci-fi reference now. In one of the last episodes of the original Battlestar Galactica, Starbuck is stuck with a Cylon on a planet and with a pregnant woman, and the pregnant woman gives birth, and the Cylon can't understand why the extra human is not useful, but everyone likes it, and that's pretty much cats, isn't it? Hello, Sydney. Good afternoon from Michigan. Excellent. I hope you're having great weather there. Hope that lake of yours is still good. Okay. Sydney is a great real life streamer. If you wanna get out of your house without getting out of your house, do give them a look. Let's do a few shout outs to the excellent people in chat. Oh wow. Now, did anyone? Oh, okay. I've completely failed to update the sub commands. That was supposed to have a picture of me on it. It did not. So that's failed. I love it. I mean, if 50% of it goes right, thanks very much, Ditch. That's very generous of you. Oh, Jimmy Neutron's got a sub. Jimmy Neutron is a very talented craftsman. Rico's got a sub. Embarrassingly, my other account has got a sub. Yeah, I registered the account that's got my actual human name in it because I thought that might be useful. I feel like, you know, from a professional basis, if you're going to stream the Robert H. Wild Crime Show, it would be useful to make sure nobody could register an account called Robert H. Wild. So they can't. Yeah, thank you for the gift sub, Ditch. That's amazing. Do you want me to sub out? You can sub anyone you want, Ditch. Given you subbed earlier on, anything I can safely read out in chat is a winner. We've already found some words that you can sub that I'm not going to read out. So, for everybody that doesn't know, Ditch is my oldest friend. We met on my first day of school here. That's possibly too much information that Ditch wants given out. Thank you, Ditch, for gifting a sub to Cavernous Love Tunnel. Yes. Ditch Boy does stream. Ditch Boy is a gaming streamer, Sydney, and he's absolutely brilliant at taking you inside how a game works. So when he does Forza streams, he will explain, because I've played Forza, I quite like Forza, but I'm not very good at it. And Ditch showed me sort of exactly how everything works, and it's like a science. Oh, you're thinking of doing a Baldur's Gate 3? That would be amazing. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm gonna premiere this. Ditch, tell them about that thing you told me on the other day. Was it a sausage boomerang or something that automatically kills people? You came up with this incredible build. Everyone who doesn't know what Baldur's Gate 3 is now sat there looking at me like, what on earth are you talking about? And I'm really hoping Ditch will now explain that, so I don't look like a complete psychopath. But Ditch knows his build, so if you see Ditch streaming Baldur's Gate 3, Aspect, yes. Right, here we are. That's it. So there's something you can do in Baldur's Gate 3 called Aspect of the Chimp that lets you throw food to blind enemies. And I believe he managed to find food that boomeranged back to him. And was some sort of incredibly powerful min-maxed comedy monster. But do you actually turn into a chimp? This is the important. I mean, it's Baldur's Gate 3. You probably do turn into a chimp. Oh, you don't turn into a chimp. Well, we found the first kink in their armour. Possibly. Sadly, no. Right, I suppose we better get into some true crime, because that's why everyone's here. And I've started talking about Baldur's Gate 3. So tonight we're going to start. Well, we'll do the interesting one first. Hi, Bryzy, great to see you. Great to see you. We'll do the interesting one first. We'll do the horrific one second, and then we've got a great upbeat, fun thing to raid. Are there any chimps in any stories tonight? No, there are not, Ditch. I mean, you could always DM me this information first, so I've got more than 2 seconds to prepare. There are no chimps. I'm pleased to say that the person I have wanted to raid for a long time is live, so this will be good later. I will surprise you later. It doesn't. Now, the first 2 raids involved cats. This does not involve cats. This raid involves an exceptionally accomplished streamer who's a master of his subject. Unlike me. Right. However, right, let's get into it. So the Golden State Killer. And then what I'm going to call groundbreaking genetic genealogy detective work. So there's a certain part of this where I want to ask you your views on its almost morality. But I will signpost that bit when we get to it. So just have fun first. If talking about a serial killer is fun. I always feel a bit weird about that. But I think, you're here. So in a sense, the Golden State Killer didn't exist until 2013. When researcher Michelle McMara decided the best way of capturing a man who had committed a lot of crimes was to give him a single recognisable name. Before this, the Golden State Killer was frequently referred to as EARONS, E-A-R-O-N-S, which is an acronym derived from the killer's history. The problem is, for many, many decades, police thought that this man was 3 different people committing 3 different sets of crimes in different parts of California. Some police had been trying to catch the Visalia ransacker, some had been trying to catch the East Area rapist, and some had been trying to catch the Night Stalker. Now, please note, over time it has been definitely not a man and not a chimp. Yes, because we have the DNA, so I can assure you 100% Now, don't ask that question during the Jack the Ripper stream, because I cannot assure you 100%. Even though I don't think many people... I mean, Jack the Ripper's got many theories. I'm not sure Chimp in a Suit has yet been advanced. So there's definitely a book in that ditch. Get it on Amazon. It's not going to be worse than some of the others. Bit of shade there. Why not? Why not? A bit of shade on some of the true crime out there. I think that's fair. Ditch Boy's manking around, yeah. So the Night Stalker has become 100% identified with Richard Ramirez. In order to get around this, they renamed this guy's Night Stalker the original Night Stalker. So if I forget to add the word original, you know we're only referring to the Golden State Killer, whose name we will get to in a second. So the police thought there were a lot of different criminals performing a lot of different crimes. In all, these criminals would have been responsible for at least 13 murders, over 50 rapes, and hundreds of crimes like theft and intimidation from 1974 to 1986 across the state. But over time, law enforcement realised that these weren't three people. They were one person who'd moved about and changed what he did. And DNA was fundamental to that realisation. And in the end, DNA caught the Golden State Killer. But not his own DNA. There is a twist as good as any best-selling crime novels. Isn't robbery unusual for a serial killer? They sort of a lot of them start out with a bit of it, but the scale that we're going to see in this is definitely unusual. They do not normally have these career changes. That's probably offensive, but never mind. And that's partly how he managed to get away and escalated. So this is the story of Joseph James D'Angelo Jr., the Golden State Killer. So, Joseph James D'Angelo Jr. Was born to the original Joseph James D'Angelo and his wife Kathleen on the 8th of November 1945 in Bath, New York. He was one of 4 siblings, as a brother and 2 sisters. For a while they moved around following their dad, who was in the military, before they settled in Rancho Cordova, and the dad was posted away. The family stayed. Joe ended up often looking after his siblings and was notionally adopted by the family of his friend Judy, who considered him a son. His mum took a new local husband. For those wanting to understand why Joseph Jr. would want to go on to commit these crimes, his sister later claimed that the father had abused him, and he had also witnessed one of his sisters being abused while they'd been stationed in West Germany. All these claims are unverified, unlike a lot of what we'll get to. Now, from this point on, there is only one Joseph, and that's the killer, so we can forget about the dad for a while. Joseph had a sport-filled schooling, which he mixed with petty crime and violent attacks on animals. Again, that's very normal for a serial killer. In 1964, he joined the Navy, was in the Vietnam War on various ships, and then returned to school. At college, Joseph pursued a police career. That is a bit unusual for a serial killer. He gained an associate degree with police science, a full degree in criminal justice, took postgrad courses, and joined the police training. By 1973, Joseph was a fully fledged member of the burglary unit in Exeter, California, until 1976, when he moved to Auburn. Yes, as I've already hinted, he does a lot of burglaries, but at this point, he was in the police burglary unit. However, in 1979, he was arrested for shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent. All right, Ditch, I got a dog in. Sort of. Actually, yeah, there's going to be a major animal-based trigger warning later, so we'll do our best not to. We'll do our best about that. So, he was fired immediately. Joseph's Ditch Boy weirdly brought a hammer today. I would ask what you were going to hit with that, but that's discretionary. That's up to your discretion. So Joseph did not really take this well. In fact, he went to the chief's house, waited outside, intending to kill him. However, the police managed to get rid of him. It's unclear what he did for employment until he became a mechanic on the trucks of a supermarket chain in Roseville, which he held from 1990 to 2017, when he briefly retired. So, at college, he became engaged to fellow student Bonnie Jean Colwell. However, she became disturbed by his actions and rejected him. Although she consented to have sex with him, he put her through long, painful hours of it. When he came to marry, he didn't even propose, he just handed her a ring. She felt ordered about, mistreated. He loved to scare her and hurt her, and didn't care what she thought. She claimed she saw him kick a dog to death. He then asked her to cheat on an exam for him in college. And it was this that made Bonnie go, that's too much. She was the child of teachers. That was it. That was the breaking point. She wasn't going to cheat. She cancelled the engagement. And one night he came to her house with a gun. The records of this thing show that Bonnie's dad dealt with the incident. Nobody actually knows what happened, but Joseph left and the police were never called. We can only imagine that Bonnie's dad had the ability to be considerably threatening, I think. And it worked. Anyway, Bonnie had got rid of Joseph for a while, but Joseph never really got rid of Bonnie. In 1978, one of Joseph's rape victims, which we're jumping ahead a bit, but reported that during a pause in the assault, he started crying and saying, "I hate you, Bonnie, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you." At that point, police had no idea who Bonnie was. Unfortunately for Bonnie, when Joseph was finally arrested, and even that was decades later, the media descended onto her home and demanded she gave an account of their time together. Some tabloids began blaming her in some way for the fact Joseph was a murdering psychopath. Obviously, this channel does not approve of that. However, in the end, Joseph moved on, sort of, and he married Sharon Huddle in November 1973. They had 3 children. The marriage lasted until 1991, when they split. Although Sharon, despite being a divorce attorney, did not legally divorce him until 2019, when she found out he was a serial killer. So, I mean, that's quite a reasonable reason for divorcing somebody. Although they had split, and despite repeated outbursts of anger and threats, neither his wife nor his 3 children had any idea at all about anything that we're going to describe as his crimes. After his arrest and at the end of his trial, his eldest daughter submitted a letter to court. Over 5 pages, she explained she had no idea what he'd done, just that he was a great father. I'm going to quote you a section because it is in stark contrast to what comes next. "My dad, Joseph James D'Angelo, has made me and my daughter the happiest in our lives. My dad was always there for me when I was sad. My father has made me a better person, a successful person, able to contribute to society and help others in the community. My dad taught me to appreciate life. I cannot begin to express how much of a loss my daughter and I are experiencing right now without him in our lives." Which, although heartfelt, does seem a bit tone deaf considering what it was discovered he did. So I've already said he was known by several different names. Coerced, I don't know. He was in prison at that time. I don't think she was coerced. I think she had no idea and probably didn't really believe that he had done these things. I think it's very difficult to learn that sort of information. Although perhaps standing up in court and giving that statement is a bit, I'm not sure. Anyway, So we're going to start with a pattern of crimes that gradually escalate. So the first name he earned, he was the Cordova cat burglar and dog killer. Now, I am going to take the animal part no further than this. I know one of the things I've learnt about people is that people can deal with a lot of true crime, but as soon as an animal gets harmed, that's the boundary. So I suppose if you're in a true crime podcast, you assume people are going to get harmed. We're going to be careful, and I'm just going to leave the fact that his name is the Cordova cat burglar and dog killer, and we won't go any further along that line. That tells you all you need to know. We don't need the details. If you do want the details, they're in the book, True Crime Dossiers, but we'll leave it there. Also, when he called cat burglar, is not a man that burglar. Not to be patronising, but if you've never heard the term cat burglar, it describes a type of robbery. It's not somebody that steals cats. He's not that evil. Anyway, so in 1972, a burglar entered the home of a Rancho Cordova family. Committed some crimes, and that was the kickoff. That was the start. From then on, someone, unidentified for many years, was seen repeatedly prowling around at night, peering into windows at women, or breaking into houses for petty theft, or the other thing we mentioned. The crimes continued. It was an epidemic. Over 50 home invasions in the first half of 1973. Police initially felt it was the work of problematic youths, and it was a low priority case. It was his first spree. He was allowed to continue unmolested. Ditch boy. Dogs are angels, therefore crimes against them are pure evil. Ditch is obviously a dog guy. That's fair enough. So that, I think we could probably agree that's sort of a lower level. However, things began to escalate. The police did not realise that this was the same man, and therefore the Visalia ransacker emerged. It's an unusual name because it wasn't really about theft and burglary. The first recognised ransacker crime was on March 19, 1974, when he stole $50 from a piggy bank after a home invasion. Between then and 1976, he committed over 100 burglaries, but not only would he get into a building, he wouldn't necessarily steal the most valuable items. He would spend time arranging items that he'd found in patterns. He would move underwear and piggy banks, but he would leave rolls of cash. He was breaking in, not for money, but to live out whatever strange fantasy he had, hence ransacker. He would commit multiple crimes on one day, and on the 12th of November, on the 30th of November 1974, he committed 12. Ditch. Oh, now this is sounding more like someone who might go on to kill. Exactly. This is a story of escalation, let's say. Near the end of the ransacker's crimes, even though the police did not know who he was, the police were staking out areas they felt he was likely to go. In December, the prowler was spotted several times at the same property, spying on a 19-year-old woman. The police set a trap, and on December 12, 1975, Detective William McGowan attempted to arrest a masked man in the backyard. There was a struggle, shots were fired, and the masked man fled. The police were certain this was the ransacker, as he left behind a collection of unusual stolen goods. And that might have been it. When Joseph moved to Sacramento in 1976, the Visalia ransacker went with him. The Visalia ransacker stopped. But police never stopped looking and wondering who was this man. There was a press conference in April 2018 when Visalia police explained that they were confident that the recently arrested Joseph, who was arrested, of course, for crimes committed by what people thought was somebody else, was also the Visalia ransacker. Indeed, the various police forces were convinced he was now the Cordova cat burglar, and many more. They were putting it all together. There was just one thing that they realised. The Visalia ransacker did more than break into places. He had actually killed someone. So Ditch is saying the fact he broke into homes and arranged things, is this some sort of mental health issue, some sort of personality flaw, something that could signify where he was going to go, that he was going to become a serial killer? And again, Ditch, that's a huge debate, as Ditch says. I think one day we'll do a stream on the psychology of serial killers. I think that's a fascinating thing to get into. But I don't plan on doing a lot of it on this one. But weirdly, Ditch, you've posted that comment just as I get to a quote from criminal psychiatrist Dr. Joel Fort explaining what might be going on. Thanks, Ditch. That's the tier we need. Oh, Sydney, thanks very much for sharing your stream. And if anybody's watching, firstly, do please give me a follow if that's your thing. Do give me, do let anybody who likes true crime know, and we will see how far this takes us. So, Joel Fort, I'm going to give you a quote from the Los Angeles Times in 2020, from an article that begins with the title "Trail of Violence," which is going to discuss what might be going on here. The point. Yes, thank you. The point wasn't money, but seeing people's intimate possessions. The subject may very well enjoy the high risk or danger of the whole matter. The primary motivation for the crime is sexual. The clinical term for this compulsion they described as paraphilia, a form of sexual perversion. The drive is associated with nuisance offenders who do no more than peep through windows or steal women's underwear. It is linked to some of the most infamous serial killers in US history. For those with paraphilia, the burglary is a cover story. The motive is sexual gratification. The thrill is in the creeping. It can end there. But experts say the risk-taking that excites a paraphiliac can lead to violence. A deep body of forensic research documents the links between fetish burglary and sexual murder, and at the far end of the nightmare spectrum, erotophobia, lust murder. The connection between paraphilia and sexual homicide is so strong that a 1999 clinical study showed that 8 out of 10 women raped or killed by a stranger at home were murdered by people who started as sexual burglars. Joseph followed this pattern precisely. On December the 11th, 1975, Joseph tried to rape the daughter of a 42-year-old college professor called Claude Snelling. It's unclear if Joseph was returning to the scene of an earlier failure, as Snelling had form for chasing off prowling men, as he'd done it in February. This time he heard Joseph, went to investigate, and found him trying to abduct his daughter. The latter was being coerced with a gun. In the struggle, the gun was used to fatally shoot Snelling. The killer ran off, without the daughter fortunately. The gun, it was soon discovered, had been stolen in a recent burglary. Nobody was arrested at the time, nobody knew who this was, but when Joseph was arrested in the 21st century, they had enough to charge him and he admitted it. But shortly after killing Snelling, Joseph went back to Rancho Cordova, broke into a house, tied up and attacked 3 women. The attack on Beth Snelling was a sign of the future. Joseph moved his life and his crimes to Sacramento in 1976. The ransacker was gone. Instead, we come to what the media would dub the East Area Rapist. He was active from 76 to 79. Normally in the book I do the victims the justice of naming them all, representing them, telling their stories. The problem with the East Area Rapist is in those 3 years he committed dozens of recognised attacks, many unknown attacks, and when the victims came to court there were sadly so many that some simply introduced themselves by their place in the order, number 20, number 17. So, the first canonical attack was June 18th, 1976. At first, Joseph would haunt well-off areas at night, where he could identify women at home alone, break in and assault them. He was a bizarre mix of brazen and careful. Attacks were often near things he could use to quickly and invisibly escape down, like back trails. But he was frequently reported as a prowler as he reconnoitred the area first. He liked to ring victims to check their movements. He would often break in, set the scene up ready for when he would come back and break in when people were there. But he was also able to change his process. When the press warned women he was targeting lone women and to have company, he moved on to attacking couples, families, and anyone, no matter what company. He'd spend days prowling and stalking the victims, appearing in their windows. Then he'd start, when they were asleep, wake them up, threaten them with a gun, ask for money and food, have the women tie any men or children up, threaten to kill anybody if they made a noise, take the women elsewhere in the house, repeatedly rape them, and then move between the rooms. Joseph was entirely performative. He wouldn't leave after he'd committed his crime. He'd burgle the house, he'd sit and eat food, he'd hang out for a while. Eventually he would disappear with his trophies, and the victims wouldn't actually know if he had gone for a long time. Husbands would often be tortured, and a favourite trick was to tie a husband up, place something fragile on their body like plates, and so if he heard them clinking, he'd kill all of them. Panic and terror were in the air, and the media fed it, along with Joseph's actions and sales of locks and guns and sword, but it didn't do any good. Joseph had a habit of breaking into an empty home, removing all the bullets, and then coming back later to assault the owner, who would find out that the gun had no ammo in it. Just says, this is sounding like the worst person you've covered so far. Yes, I think it is, but we are building to an ending that is both fascinating and groundbreaking and controversial. So stick with it, it's worth it. I think. Possibly. Police tried their best to keep certain details out of the media, but they were alarmed that people were inadvertently helping him. All too often, police investigating a rape would find evidence that neighbours had seen a suspicious man, locked their own windows, and not told any of their neighbours. When people did act, it was gangs of armed vigilantes. Tragically, the victims in this era had little in the form of counselling and support, and almost nothing in the form of justice. If you're wondering how one man can go on this massive spree, I regret to inform you it was not one man. Just 1 in 16 rapes in the state in that era ended in a conviction. When it did, attackers often got just a year. It was a horror show in terms of a legal system. In an era before DNA, the police had very little to work on and no training to help the victims. At the time, police only suspected that the East Area rapist had committed a murder. Brian and Kate Maguire, a young military family, went out to walk their dog, a poodle, and were found shot to death. They were in Rancho Cordova, where the rapist was very active. It was night time, and his favourite method of binding a shoelace was found near. Nobody really could connect him until Joseph was arrested, and it was proven, and he admitted it, pleading guilty. The rapes were a sort of power trip against women, but also the male partners. Modern police believe some of the couples were picked so the man could be humiliated as an equal part of the crime. Sadly, over half the couples who had been assaulted in this way split up. But as you've noticed, there was another escalation. Brian and Katie were murdered, and soon after, Joseph moved once again. The East Area rapist stopped. The original Night Stalker started. He was now in Southern California, and he began killing people in a series of murders that lasted from 1979 to 1986. The first deaths were on December 30th, 1979, when a middle-aged couple called Robert and Deborah Offerman were found dead at their home in Goleta, and they had been tied up and shot to death, although it looked like Robert had managed to get free in an attempt to fight. Police worked out that the killer had stolen a nearby bike to escape. This was something he did throughout his entire sprees, often escaping and abandoning bikes. At the same time, somebody was performing a burglary spree, smashing up homes, stealing trinkets, harming animals. And then one day the police discovered something else. The footprints and method of binding matched those taken from the scene of an earlier assault, when on October 1st another couple in Galita had suffered a break-in, were tied up and managed to scare the attacker off. Detectives investigating the East Area rapist came over to speak to those working on this. They felt they were linked. They felt they were the same culprit. Many of the people on the cases felt the same. But the investigation into the murders was being led by Lieutenant Ray Root, and he didn't think so. He didn't think the East Area rapists would be scared off, and he also thought the East Area team had failing in their work. He decided they would not work together. And on October 12, 1980, some newspapers explained how the rapist and the killer were not the same person. Ever reliable newspapers. Thanks, Steve. March 13th saw another early middle-aged couple found dead in their home. Charlene Smith had been raped, bound with her husband, and beaten to death with firewood that was stored at their home. Police did not announce that there had been a rape and charged a friend and business partner of Lyman's before it was dropped. Now, if you're following the many names, thanks Stephen Foxy for the hype, if you're following the many names, Charlene had been tied up with a diamond knot, which meant that for a while the press referred to this as the diamond knot killer. You can see why somebody decided to coalesce all of these under one name that could be easily used. Thanks, Sydney. On August 19th, a young couple called Keith and Patrice Harrington were bound, raped, beaten to death 3 months after they were married. Again, police denied publicly that any rape had happened or that there was any connection to the East Area rapist. And I think you can understand why I'm stressing this point, in that there was a train of logic that I was actively working against tying this up and solving this. On 1981, on the 6th of February, a woman was alone at home because her husband was in hospital. She was raped and beaten to death. He would take the weapons and the bindings with him often. On July 27th, Sherry, Domingo and Gregory Sanchez were found dead again, having suffered the same. In 1982, a man called Brett Glasby from Gleta was murdered while in Mexico. He had been a suspect in the murder, but only because a new sheriff, desperate to impress and close the case quickly, pushed the investigation in the wrong direction. His officers knew it was the wrong direction too. However, Glasby, although dead, wasn't ruled out for a while because there was a lull in the crimes. It was only in 1986, when 18-year-old Janelle Cruz was alone in her home on holiday, raped and beaten to death, that police went, yeah, it's the original Night Stalker still, isn't it? We don't know who it is. Now, Jack the Ripper's transformation into a media moneymaker was aided by communications coming to the press purporting to be from him. We'll get into whether they were on another show. The Golden State Killer decided to have a go at this himself, possibly. The Sacramento Bee, in December 1977, received a poem from someone claiming to be from the East Area rapist. Chat. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Do you want me to read the poem? Because I have it. It's in the book, and I have it in front of me. They're just straight in with a 2. Do not read the poem. It's not actually. No, it's not. Right, I should give the context. It's not actually like a gruesome, gory, random, brutal poem. It is genuinely something that you could read out. It's weird, but it's not like, I mean, in one of the streams I refused to read out the transcript of a video because it's horrific. This is not horrific, it's just a bit weird. But I will, chat's right, we'll skip it. Perhaps because story's too dark, we don't want to humanise him. Yes, perhaps reading out his poetry is humanising him a bit too much. So we'll skip it. If you want to read it, it's in True Crime Dossiers. So, The Golden State Killer made multiple phone calls to law enforcement and the media, saying who he was, saying you guys can't catch me, saying I'm going to do it again. On December 9th, 1977, he actually rang up a victim to say Merry Christmas, it's me again. He began a long process of telephone harassment. Now, that is all the horrible stuff. Now the story starts to turn, and we move towards getting justice for this. That's the worst of it, guys. So, in the late 90s, diligent police work led detectives to try and connect this mass of burglaries, rapes and murders together. And a breakthrough came in 2001. A DNA profile managed to link, for the first time, fully, in a believed manner, the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker. So the killer was given the name Aarons, Aarons. Rather than catching suspects, DNA first proved useful in ruling people out. Paul Schneider led a right-wing movement in Orange County and had been in prison because of violent dogs. He was a suspect, but DNA proved he wasn't. Joe Alsip, who was charged with the murder of his friends and business partners, the Smiths, before justice was dropped, was also exonerated by the DNA. And now we get to Michelle McNamara, a remarkable journalist and crime writer. Her crime blog was the scene of the Golden State Killer's birth. She explained to Los Angeles Magazine on 27th of February 2013 in an article which let the name stick and in which she was absolutely right. One of the uncomfortable truths about tracking and catching serial killers is marketing matters. Ever since Jack the Ripper terrorised the slums of 19th century London, serial killers who thrive on public reaction seem to instinctively know this and sometimes devise their own monikers. The Zodiac Killer, for instance, announced himself in a letter to the editors of the San Francisco Examiner in 1969, a handle that perfectly crystallises the creepiness, menace and horror of the perpetrator, and what he or she has done can help but captivate the public's imagination. Either will put added pressure on politicians and police departments to apprehend the killer as long as he remains at large, even if he retires. It will linger with the popular culture long after the perpetrator has been caught. This killer has benefited from not having a proper name, and therefore we've had I presume this is some sort of bot attack. Probably not got 8 million followers. Interesting. Just give me a second, guys. Possibly been botted in some way because I gained 200 followers in about 30 seconds. We'll sort that out. Anyway, so we got to the Golden State Killer. And then things changed in a way that will change crime history forever. In 2016, the FBI and local police departments came together to announce a new $50,000 reward and a renewed effort to catch the Golden State Killer. Less than 2 years later, Joseph James D'Angelo Jr. was arrested, imprisoned, and started to confess. He was caught by cunning police work, but he was also caught by a completely unrelated cultural phenomenon. So genealogy has always fascinated people, and family historians have been around for decades, but for most of that time, finding your ancestors involved trips to actual record office to look at heavy old physical files. I've done some family history myself. It's a lot of looking stuff up. With the internet, files began to be digitized, And people began to find new ways of making the process easier. One way to take advantage of cheaper and easier DNA tests was to upload your DNA to databases of like-minded family historians and see what matched. So imagine what would happen if the police took some DNA, uploaded it to a genealogy database, and saw what matched. They did, and it was an immediate success. The brains behind it was Paul Holes, the District Attorney's Office in Contra Costa County's head of forensics. He managed to build a Y chromosome profile in 2017 from a rape kit of the East Area rapist, and he used a free website called Y Search to try and find a match. The web DNA part of this story gets the headlines, but it's useful to remember that the many years in different locations of the crimes meant that, in the 2010s, there was evidence forgotten in dusty corners of many evidence rooms waiting to be found. And he found a partial match. They teamed with the FBI to get a subpoena and forced the website to give details on the account. The website did so, but Holes and the team went to the suspect, but he was an elderly gentleman in a nursing home who was uninvolved. He was a too distant a match. So some of the FBI gave up at this point and moved on, but Steve Kramer, an FBI LA Division counsel, believed this had potential. He spoke to a judge and other experts and deemed that the situation was legal enough and with enough potential to push on. The pair searched for 4 of these other rape kits in dusty corners and found one from the Smith murders. The local police agreed to allow the data to be used in what they dubbed genetic genealogy investigation. So, in the initial explanation given to the public, investigators said they took a DNA profile from a Golden State Killer rape kit and uploaded it to GED Match, what's called a personal genomics website with public information. There was a matchup between 10 and 20 people who were on the system. And had the same great-great-grandparents as the Golden State Killer. This action has been described as covert. This isn't what happened. While this information was described to the general public as involving the genetic information of people, which those people had made public and was so freely available to police. In truth, the police's first port of call was the Family Tree DNA service, which allowed the police to set up a fake account with the new DNA profile, and also to GED Match. There wasn't a close enough match to continue there, but then there was a breakthrough. They worked closely with expert genealogist Barbara Venter, who uploaded the profile on her own initiative to MyHeritage, which did give a close match and allow the next step. Now, neither of these places I've mentioned are law enforcement agencies. They are privately run for profit companies which did not know what was going on and denied involvement. And the privacy policies of these make it a controversial situation. In 2019, with public interest strong, Family Tree DNA admitted giving the FBI access to their database and said their privacy policy always allowed access after a lawful request made by public authorities. MyHeritage had a similar policy but was adamant that they had not had a legal approach and the database access was wrong. Kramer is alleged to have said, "Law enforcement is entitled to go where the public goes." This allowed the team to construct the DNA match into the large family tree, which they worked their way through to see if okay. Yeah, I'm up to quite a lot. What do I need to do to stop that? Okay, we'll leave it for now. Alright, we'll just carry on with this. So, they worked their way through to see if they could find any member with the sort of profile that would have allowed them to be the Golden State Killer. They had some prime candidates. One was swiftly ruled out by a DNA test on the suspect's sister, but now they had access to female DNA, which allowed another profile to be built, this time on Ancestry.com. This left 6 male cousins as suspects. Driver's license records were pulled up so the police could look at the photos of their eyes. Only with it, one had the blue eyes survivors had reported it. Was this the suspect, a man called Joseph James D'Angelo Jr.? The killer? The police took samples from Joseph's can and rubbish bin and found they matched the killer. At one point, an investigator found himself alone at Joseph's home, wondering whether to approach him, but he retreated, and Joseph was arrested on April 24th, 2018. Joseph made an odd sort of confession. He said he did it. He said he did it because Jerry, who lived inside him, made him do it. Recording equipment caught him saying to himself, "I didn't have the strength to push him out. He made me, he went with me. It was like in my head. I mean, he was a part of me. I didn't want to do those things. I pushed Jerry out and had a happy life. I did all those things. I destroyed their lives, so now I've got to pay the price." His ex-wife pushed for divorce. His children said they had no idea. With this conclusion to the case, the relief of capturing such a prolific killer and rapist overwhelmed many questions about how the DNA was used. Cheryl Temple, Chief Assistant District Attorney for Ventura County, said, "I have no concern whatsoever about the legality of anything that was done. I don't think anybody has any question about how this case was solved." The statute of limitations meant by 2018 Joseph could only be charged with 13 murders and 13 kidnappings, not the massive rape and burglary spree. Facing a 10-year multi-million-dollar trial, a deal was made. He would plead guilty if he was not to be executed. Because of social distancing regulations and massive public interest, the hearing where Joseph pled guilty was held in the I've just been yes. Well, that's handy. At a second hearing, it was held in the Sacramento State University Auditorium, a 2,000-seater venue. At a second hearing, he was sentenced to 11 consecutive life terms, without the possibility of parole, for 13 murders, and an additional consecutive life term for 13 kidnappings, and 8 years for weapons charges. He's currently still alive and in prison. The brother of Keith Harrington, Bruce, gave $2 million to a campaign to have Proposition 69, the DNA Fingerprint Unsolved Crime and Innocent Protection Act, passed in 2004. It allowed the California legal system to automatically connect DNA from felons. In addition, in 2016, California ended the statute of limitations for rapes and sex crimes for everything occurring going forward. This DNA database had proved hugely effective in solving cold cases. However, a lot of investigators have also turned to family history databases to try and do similar things in such numbers, and with a lot of unresolved ethical questions. Websites started trying to restrict law enforcement access, and the US Justice Department acted to restrict access while a discussion could be had. The power and insight of this new, suddenly existing mass DNA database has seen other people convicted, such as the NorCal rapist, but has also seen people falsely accused. Okay, we'll take a break while we attempt to find out what a Seribot is. Right, that might be sorted. Yeah, it's just working through the follows that happened about 15 minutes ago. If that's getting annoying, we can probably turn that on. Ah yes, for some reason something keeps muting my mic in ABS. Anyway, so the world suddenly discovered in about 2020 that there existed a vast DNA database of millions of people who had committed no crimes. And that DNA database was mostly held by genealogy companies. So, what does that actually mean? What in practice does this mean? Well, science.org ran an explanation of where there is now and where it's going. Is the audio working now, Ditch? They said if you're white, if you live in the United States, and a distant relative have uploaded their DNA to a public ancestry database, there's a good chance there's an internet sleuth can identify you from any DNA sample you've left somewhere. That's the conclusion of a new study, which finds that by combining an anonymous DNA sample with some basic information, such as someone's rough age, researchers could narrow that person's identity to fewer than 20 people by starting with a DNA database of 1.3 million individuals. Such a search could potentially allow the identification of 60% of white Americans from a DNA sample, even if they have never provided their own DNA to an ancestry database. The way these databases are growing, in a few years it's really going to be everyone. As you can imagine, there are some problems and some issues with the idea that a database exists, that somebody could just pick up your cup in a copy shop and then get your DNA. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you. Nonetheless, Family Tree DNA have decided to work wholeheartedly with law enforcement. And by 2019, BuzzFeed News were able to report, just weeks after D'Angelo's arrest, Parabon Nanolabs launched a commercial forensic genealogy service. Since May, it has identified suspects in 36 cold cases. Parabon has competition. The biggest forensic DNA testing company in the US, Bone Technology, has announced it is launching a rival forensic genealogy business. Parabon offers initial DNA test. Pro streamer, yeah. Parabon offers, well, I mean, it's got a lot of follows, so not all bad. Parabon offers initial DNA testing, basic information on the perpetrator's likely skin, eye, and hair colour, and assessment of whether a case might be solved through genealogy for $15,000. $1,500, bit of a difference. According to BuzzFeed News, if a case looks promising, Parabon charges $3,500 for up to 15 hours of research by an expert genealogist. As you might expect, actually, you might not be expecting what I'm going to say now. The Golden State Killer's victims had very different views about this. Jennifer Carroll, whose parents' murder the DNA came, said DNA should not be something one Googles. Anytime you are using a DNA service, it should be between you and the service. If you make a conscious decision to share, that's fine, but it shouldn't implicate your relatives. But Debbie Domingo McCallum, whose mother was killed by Joseph, said laws weren't broken but practices were banned. Still, investigation by nature, it always has tended to include a little bit of deception. The truth is what's important. And now we return to Michelle McNamara. Sadly, she died in 2016 before the Golden State Killer would be identified. In her half-written book, which was finished and polished by her editors, she predicted everything. She said, unfortunately, neither company will work with law enforcement, referring to ancestry websites, citing privacy issues in the terms of service. If we could just submit the killer's actual genetic material to one of those databases, the odds are great that we would find a second or third cousin, and that person would lead investigators to the killer's identity. So that's how the Golden State Killer was caught, and that's where we stand at the moment with an evolving discussion about whether this wealth of information which sits on computers should be, could be, will be used by law enforcement. So I appreciate that's a bit of a long, grueling story, but I hope you appreciate that. I hope you find the ending is sufficiently fascinating. And I'm now going to throw it over to chat's view on what might you want. Ah yes, Steve's asking Ditch when he's streaming next. That's a good question. Might be a while. I'm trying to persuade him. Yeah, I'm the same, Ditch. So it's an interesting question. Although if you do decide to stream, perhaps not 7 in the morning. So yeah, that's the Golden State Killer. Yeah, DNA is an interesting question. Okay, well, in that case, we will move on to the next story. I'm going to apologise in advance for this one. Alright, I'm a bit worried because Ditch referred to the last story as dark. And that is a bit of a worry because this one's worse. I mean, if that story is dark, I'm not really sure what this one is. Some Lovecraftian nightmare in the heart of the universe, probably. Hey Thelonious, good to see you. Yeah, well, compared to what I'm about to read out, Ditch, it probably was light. So I want to cover new and breaking crimes. I don't want to just be rehashing material that you may have seen elsewhere, even if I think it's material I've added value to. I want to be doing new things. And last week we're going to need more than kits this time. Trust me, Ditch, I have a great stream lined up. In fact, let's tease where we're going to raid. So last week a certain streamer celebrated their 4 years on Twitch. They regularly pull in a good crowd. They stream every day on their subject. They're a really good, fascinating streamer. What's that subject? Well, that would give it away. It's not true. It's not even remotely true crime. But there are. I suppose it's sort of tangentially animal related. Yeah. Perhaps we ought to do the raid then. Oh, thanks, Thelonious. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. It's been going well. Thanks for popping in on a break at work. In that case, if Thelonious has only got 5 minutes, we will crack on. I apologise again. I apologise in advance. Do I have a no? I don't have a happy story tonight because I've been ill and then had to work all weekend to catch up. So, but we do have a great raid afterwards, which I'm relying on to boost us. I mean, it's a true crime stream, but there's not really happy stuff. I mean, the ending of the Golden State Killer was supposed to be happy because we caught him. Anyway, it's not how being off-sick works. Yeah, the trouble is, if I don't do my share of the work, then there's nobody else to do it. So you've kind of got to do it. You can't really be sick. Anyway, so this news story broke in Britain last week. It's completely true. I want to do new stuff. I want to do different stuff. So I'm going to do this. I will listen to complaints at the end. If this is not it, if this is really not it, let me know. Right. So, growing up, I'm a certain age. Growing up in the VHS era, we all heard the urban legend of snuff movies, dodgy tapes passed around in the underground showing people being murdered. Law enforcement assured us that snuff movies didn't exist. It's just an urban legend. Then, with the dawn of the internet, that legend moved into red rooms, which was essentially the same thing. Places in dark and hidden corners of the web where you could watch live torture and execution. And again, we were assured these were urban legends. None of us ever wanted to see anything like this, but it's how we scared ourselves. But I regret to inform you that some people, you know what people are like, they hear a horrible idea and they think, oh, that would be a good idea. Yeah. There now really are parts of the web where you can log on and see those. We know this because last week Marius Gustafsson was convicted of running one in Britain. He was convicted of running a website called Eunuch Maker. Gentlemen, cross your legs. Trigger warnings on. This is about to get particularly brutal, but also true and an actual urban legend in reality, which you don't tend to get. So, Marius Gustafsson was born in a small Norwegian town. He grew up, became a postal worker, was the chairman of an LGBT charity which ran pride events, and did parties for high school children when they'd finished their term. He was described as a big teddy bear who likes Eurovision. Regrettably, I have also been described as a big teddy bear who likes Eurovision, and I'm not really keen on that nickname being usurped by an actual lunatic. Anyway, he slipped into criminality, and in 1999, which I'm not coming around then. In 1999, he received a suspended sentence for fraud after he conned a housing cooperative, and in 2001, he received a further 8 months for fraud on the internet. Nevertheless, in 2005, he married. He was able to move to the UK, and in 2016, regrettably, his marriage fell apart. Also, regrettably, his mind completely fell apart at the same time. He replaced the good parts of his life in his marriage with becoming involved in the body modification scene, and he moved with alacrity to the extreme end of the body modification scene. Thelonious Monk, I'll have to watch this one later. You're going to be the only one. Take care, Thelonious. Thelonious has got the right idea. He's seen where this is going, and he's politely run off. I don't blame you. Let's be honest. This video isn't going to get watched. This VOD isn't going to get watched a lot more beyond about the next minute. Anyway, in 2017, Gustafsson was living with Damien Burns, who became a co-defendant. Burns said he was desperate for money and allowed Gustafsson to talk him into removing his penis with a kitchen knife. Burns was sick after and was appalled. Gustafsson seemed to be quite into this. Well, Ditch is also well ahead. Gustafsson was into this, and in 2019 he had a nipple removed and froze part of his leg. Now, this is a technical expression which means putting your leg in dry ice long enough that you then have to amputate it. Gustafsson thought this was good. He was into this. This was not upsetting. The trial tried to explain that he had feelings of empowerment and greater acceptance of feelings of himself and contentment within his own body. Also, as he was now a wheelchair user, he racked up £18,000 in benefits payments. I mean, you know, I'm a female, just a bloke's handle. I didn't know. Is Thelonious Monk a bloke's handle? I mean, I know who Thelonious Monk is, but I never kind of assumed that was. Anyway, stick with it. So Gustafsson liked this. He was really into this, but obviously you only have one penis to cut off. What's the solution? Find some other penises. So he set up the website Eunuch Maker and said he would help other people with body integrity dysphoria. He also wanted to make a lot of money. So the plan was simple. Use the website to recruit ill people who felt they wanted to be mutilated, invite them round, stream those acts online for paying customers, and then give the victims some of the money. There was a level of free access on the website. Some people were paying £100 a year, and everybody was tuning in to watch what was essentially torture porn. He had a team who helped him. None of them had any medical qualifications. They would bring people to the room, get them high on drugs, tie them down, and cut bits off them. Some victims were as young as 16. Wasn't there a chap in Wales who cut off his own bits with secateurs? Yeah, I think there was. One video shows Gustafsson cooking freshly removed testicles ready to be eaten. Some body parts were kept as trophies. Some body parts were sold over the internet because he had a buy it now button. You may be wondering what the audience possibly could be for a website where you would have to pay £100 to watch people have their balls cut off. In 3 years, was it 3 years? When did he start this? 17, 19, 20. In a year, he made nearly £300,000 and had over 22 visitors. The website was taken down in 2020 after a tip-off by a victim. When they raided Gustafsson's house, they found his penis in a drawer. The scheme was described in court fairly as gruesome and grisly human butchery done for a mixture of sexual gratification as well as financial reward. It was also extremely dangerous, and they were able to dig out multiple 999 calls of him ringing for medical help, lying to offer other explanations of how these injuries possibly happened. One victim described that he had the Eunuch Maker initials EM branded into him with a hot iron. Now, the people Gustafsson persuaded to be victims needed psychiatric help. He was talking them into it for fun and profit. His defence team said, and I quote, he wanted to put a smile on people's faces. One victim had perhaps a much more balanced description as, he's a lunatic. He was charged with conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm, 5 counts of grievous bodily harm with intent, 1 count of making an indecent photograph of a child, 1 count of distributing an indecent photograph of a child, and possession of extreme pornography. He pled guilty and was sentenced to life with a minimum of 22 years. 6 assistants were convicted of GBH with intent and given sentences ranging from 12 years to 4.5 years. Yeah, just says, ambulance hit me again. My mate was making a smoothie whilst naked and fell over. I know that's the 3rd time this week. It does make you wonder how many of those comedy, someone rang up 999 and said they've got an aeroplane stuck up their arse calls is actually something actually more horrific than you're imagining, even though they claim they were doing some decorating and fell on their model kit. We've gone so far, so let's keep going. One of the assistants, Peter Waits, is 67. He's a retired former member of the Royal Society of Chemistry. When he was arrested, they found 2 penises on a ball bag in a butter tub marked "Do Not Defrost" in his freezer. My freezer has a lot of ice cream in it. I think I prefer my freezer. Burns, who you may remember from earlier, was convicted along with other people of mutilating Gustafsson himself. Now, you may remember that Gustafsson actually asked for this at the trial. Prosecutor Kate Mulholland explained, "Consent is not a defence to illegal surgical procedures that you willingly take part in non-sterile and life-threatening circumstances." I.e., it doesn't matter how much you say you want your penis cut off, you can't have your penis cut off. Which is good. The judge summed up, "Gustafsson, you are very much the mastermind behind this grisly and gruesome enterprise. The business you set up was both busy and lucrative. You have no medical qualifications. Like-minded individuals were recruited by you. I am entirely satisfied that the motivation of all those involved was a mixture of sexual gratification as well as financial reward. The scale of the website was described as without precedent, and it's impossible to know how many people were harmed." But of course there's a problem, and the police have recognised there's a major problem here. They are going to put Gustafsson in prison. Gustafsson is a man who has the ability to talk damaged, vulnerable men into doing things with cutlery. So they've basically stuck him in a prison where he can do this a lot. They are working out how best to treat him and keep him in the prison to minimise his corrosive effect on other inmates. Broadmoor, yeah, possibly. Certainly, maybe isolation. Well, I can't remember what it's called at the moment. Now, as if this wasn't bad enough, Sky News spoke to some experts in the internet. It was pointed out that Eunuch Makers was such a low-tech, unencrypted, ad hoc DIY affair that it was easily caught. They would predict that based on criminal activity, there are almost certainly actually secret high-tech websites like this out there functioning far more under the radar. And that's the happy thought I'm going to end this with. So, like me, if you're like me, of a certain age, and you spent a lot of the 90s being told, "Oh, snuff movies," and then they're not real. Yeah, they're real now. You can live stream it. Personally, I prefer this stream. I think this is a much more interesting stream. I don't charge you £100. If you wanted to subscribe, you can. Although, let's be honest, after that, you're probably wanting some bleach for your ears, which I will do my best to provide in a minute. So how are we all feeling about that one? Yes, we will get round. I believe he's called Mr. Vise. We will get round to him. Oh, don't you worry, he will be coming up. We did this one now because the census was handed out last week. Oh, great to see you enjoying it, Sydney. I'm going to be honest, I got halfway through that, and I did expect to see the viewer count drop to about -10, because I'm not really sure that was necessarily a fun story. Weirdly, this one could be considered less dark. Yeah, I mean, weirdly. I was writing this one today going, well, we had a good run, lads. That's the end of the streaming career. Right, well, amazingly, everyone's still here. So that fills me with slightly more confidence that this is going to be a worthwhile endeavour, and I'm not just going to break you all every 20 minutes. So, is there any news? There was something I wanted to talk about. Did I write it down? No, I didn't. Can I remember what it is? No, I can't. While I try and remember what it is, let's try another little innovation for the stream. Let's close my notes and let's open up crimeandinvestigation.co.uk has This Day in Crime. It's the 14th of May. Before anybody asks, I started this on the 14th of May. This is the 14th of May stream. How about a poll? Yeah, alright then. We will have a poll. That's a great idea. I'm all in favour of polls. I am now making a poll. Actually, we need to talk about the text-to-speech in a minute. Right, hang on. Right, I really need to... Right, that's because... Right, I know why that's happened. The M on my keyboard mutes and unmutes me. So when I typed the poll, it muted me. Well, that's something to work out. Thank you for that. So while we wait for the results of the poll, and we will do This Day in Crime. When 26 million... So I need... Yes, obviously I've not written this. I need to... This is crimeandinvestigation.co.uk/thisday. I'm just going to... So I think that's a full reference. I think that's fine. When 26 million was stolen from Northern Bank, the serial numbers of 150,000 £10 notes thought to be stolen were released in the hope they could trace the robbers. That didn't work. So today is the day that £240 million worth of notes were reissued in a different style and colour. Therefore, all the old currency became invalid. So essentially, the bank had to completely issue all their notes in a different way to stop people using the robbed stuff. No one has ever been charged. The IRA have been accused, and we'll leave that there in case we piss them off. We have the Golden State Killer is currently leading as the darkest story. Now that's really interesting to me as somebody that writes this stuff, and then sits here and works out how I'm going to perform it. I genuinely thought the Golden State Killer story had some fascinating stuff about like the future of crime and what was going on, and that the Eunuch Maker was probably leaning into stuff that people wouldn't want. But it's turned out to be completely the opposite, which is fascinating. And there's an interesting ways I can come to try and put together content. Okay, so has anybody been watching the subtitles? Are they any good? Wasn't dark just weird? Well, okay, that's cool. That gives me that really helps me calibrate what to do going forward. Yeah, okay. All right. What did I want to talk about? It was going to be. It was a discussion. The second story, some of the people did want it, however messed up this is true. Technically speaking, everybody wanted it until afterwards, I believe. It was going to be a content discussion, something I could do. Now I can't remember. So I feel sitting here trying to remember. No one in the first two would have volunteered. That's correct. I guess the moral is spending an hour on a serial killer might not be the most fun thing in the world. We shall see. Right, the poll is done, and the Eunuch, the Golden State Killer, is the darkest story. Just goes to show what I know. Right. We are closing in on 20 to 1. I'm never going to remember what I wanted to tell you. If there was a cat detective, fill your boots. Yeah. After last stream, two streams ago, I did feel people were getting a bit oppressed by the content in the middle, and I did start Googling. It was like 4 a.m. I literally Googled funny murders. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think, with the benefit of a good night's sleep, I don't think that is actually a thing. But and if you're wondering, I am trying to improve the stream. Possibly not a good idea. And if you are wondering, if you do Google funny murders, there are genuinely results where people have written like, "Here's a funny one." Maybe people respond more comfortably to a justice ending. Yeah, but I mean, both those stories had people being caught. It's the unsolved crimes one that might be a bit of an issue. Particularly the person with cookery. Well, yes, I think that's the thing. And you're doing it as somebody that's gone on for 30 or 40 years. There's a lot to get through. Even if they were caught in a space age sort of way. Right. Well, thank you everybody. I think we'll call it a night there. And this means we get to stream someone I really like on Twitch. They've lived most of their lives free. This is correct. Let me just check he's still on. Yes, he is, right. So, I'd like to introduce you to a Twitch streamer called Paleontologizing. He is a fully qualified paleontologist, and he covers all aspects of that era. I mean, I was going to introduce him as, we're going to go to the dinosaur stream. I'm not sure he wants me to refer to him as the dinosaur stream, given that he's an expert in vast areas of prehistoric knowledge. But essentially we're going to get into the dinosaur man, and he can talk about dinosaurs. No, do not go into chat and go, "Are you the dinosaur man?" let's not all go and get banned. I hope you. I don't know if anyone's in the mood for some paleontology chat, but I just really wanted to give you an introduction to this chap. If anything, he's the sort of thing I should be aiming. His sort of quality and subject that I should be aiming for. I do like watching him. So there we go. I'll go there. You know, coaching us to say something on a raid is the usual form. Yes, I know, but I don't have a raid command. I don't have lots of things to post. I'm not sure if I'm not sure how into that I am. I like to go in so you can watch people and meet them. So the person who gets thrown is confirmed. All right. Well, I'm very much of the mantra of improve one thing every time. So in this stream there were 2 improvements. Can anybody in the stream tell me are the visuals better? I should not have such terrible. I watched these back and they weren't good. Are the visuals better? I think I re-smudged the cam because I did clean it. It was okay yesterday. Not yesterday, 2 days ago. If the cam is still smudged, I'm going to say that's probably just a scratch on the camera. I'm not sure how much more I can clean it. Blame Polly. Well, the camera predates Polly. Fortunately, the camera is here, and Polly is here, so I don't think I can blame Polly on that one. I mean, I will. We're gonna need a button where somebody can do it. If the story's getting so dark, you can activate the emergency dreamies, and the cat comes in. I feel that's the only solution. Also, it's the only way to pay for the inevitably huge amount of dreamies my increasingly podgy cat would eat. That's a plan. Oh, thank you, Sydney, for knocking that up. Okay. Emergency probably going to go there. Did anybody see if the visual quality was better? Have I fixed that? Okay. Thank you, everybody. I will prepare the raid. Visuals look good. Excellent. So we did 2 things today. We did the subtitles and we did the visuals. We will get raid commands in. What else is there to be fixed? Cat cam. The cable's on the way. So we're moving on. Mic muting. Yeah, I'll change the hotkey. Yeah. Also, importantly, get some better material. All right. You think the M's the bad problem? I've only just decided to connect my computer to a LAN. Think the M's nothing. I've been streaming over essentially a wind-up radio. Right, let's crack on. We need to get to Dinosaur Man while everyone's excited. Okay, good luck, everybody. I do really appreciate you being here and helping me do this, and the audience. And I will be back on Thursday. God knows what subject we'll get onto then. I hope you appreciated some breaking news and some classics. And take care, everyone. Oh, there's a camera.